Okay, in this tutorial we're going to load in some existing geometry, create a little environment for it, add some texturing, position some lights, and make a final render. In this case it's going to be a virtual product shot, and we're going to go with the computer mouse from the stock content that comes with Modo. So we'll go ahead and go up to Open File, and in your file requester you want to navigate into the content directory, into Mechanical, and there's Computer Mouse, and bring it in. And this is a model that came with Modo 103. It's a nice looking model, but not very exciting, no real textures, but we're going to spice this sucker up in a hurry using 201. So let's go ahead and go to the render try view here. And there's the mouse way back there in the preview. Let's go ahead and change this view here to the camera. And with the mouse in that viewport, hold down A or press A. That will auto fit. Now you can use Alt key to move the camera around. It's all good. And let's make sure this view is set to perspective. And what we want to do is, let's switch over here to the item list. I'm going to select the mesh. I'm going to do a click, pause, click, which allows me to rename it mouse. All right, so good, so far so good. Okay, next thing we want to do is create another mesh item. So I'm going to press N for new mesh item. And now you can see we have a new blank mesh item here in our list. Let's choose the cube primitive. We're going to zoom out here a little bit in the perspective view and kind of rotate up to the top and just drag that out. And there you can see is our cube. And it's nice to be able to see in the interactive render there where that's going to be placed. And switch to edge selection. I'm using the space bar to switch selection modes. I'm going to switch to edge selection here and click and drag over those edges to select them. Press Z for edge extend. Click in the 3D interface and drag the handle up a little bit. And then we're just going to press the R key for scale and use the planar scale handles. And press W for move. We'll move that back up a little bit. And now what I want to do is grab these edges here. Press B. B is for bevel. Click and drag in the interface, and that creates the nice beveled edges there. We can barely see it right now in the camera view, but that way if we decide at some point we want to move the camera around a little bit, get a different angle, we have a nice kind of soft fall off there in the background. Okay, that's all good. Switching to polygon mode here. Double click on a polygon, selects all of the contiguous polygons, which is all of the ground. Press M for set material. Type in ground, enter, and now we have created a material for those polygons called ground. So let's go ahead and go back to our nice angle here. And the next thing we want to do is start looking at texturing. Before we do that, let's go ahead and rename this mesh item. So click, pause, click. There we go. We'll call it ground also. And we'll go over to render settings and open up the render item. Inside the render item, you can see we have our ground object, or ground material rather. Then we have these beautifully named 4, 1, 3, and 2. Doesn't tell us much about what they are actually affecting. So we're going to choose the mouse item here and hold the shift key and press A over the perspective view. That will auto fit just the mouse. If I push A without the shift key, it fits all the layers. Shift A only selects fits to the currently selected item, which is the mouse here. So what we want to do is find out what these are. So I'm going to switch to material mode and simply click on it. And there it is. That's the mouse cord. So if I click again, cord. What's this? That is the mouse shell. Good. What's this? That is the mouse base. And finally, what's this? That is the scroll wheel. Nice visual way to explore the scene. Even if we didn't create it, it really helps for figuring out or dissecting a scene to well, in this case, improve it or just edit it in general. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, everything's looking good. We're on the ground plane pretty closely there. So that's fine. Now let's go ahead and change some materials. First thing we're going to work on is the mouse wheel, the scroll wheel. And what I'm going to do is set the diffuse amount to say 30% and then turn up a little bit of specular. Say 10%, maybe a little more. And we'll decrease the roughness amount, which gives it a tighter spec. Now, it's a little hard to see what's going on there, so let's just scroll in since I'm It's kind of funny. I'm using the scroll wheel on my real mouse to zoom in on the scroll wheel on my virtual mouse. And what you'll notice is that when I use the scroll wheel in the item preview, it doesn't change the zoom of the camera. It's actually zooming in on the image that I'm seeing being rendered. If I hold down the scroll wheel or middle mouse, I can then use that to pan around on that image very quickly. Then, of course, scrolling back out with the scroll wheel goes back to match the camera view. So there's a nice convenience feature there. You can zoom in without actually changing the actual camera's zoom factor or position. And we can see there we have our little kind of matte rubber, and I'm happy with that. So we're going to move on. So we'll go over here, and the next thing I'm going to work on is the mouse shell. Now in this case, what I want to do is I want to create a very shiny, sparkly paint with a clear coat. And luckily, good friend Jason Bickerstaff has created a nice material group preset for us. So I'm just going to right click, choose set load preset rather, go into the content directory, presets, materials, material groups, there it is, sparkle paint. Now you'll notice that it's not very sparkly or painty, it's just kind of reflective right now. This is because inside here you'll see that there's a reflection top material and its shader, there's a base material, base coat, and its shader. And so since these guys are feeding their own shaders, we don't want them underneath a global shader like this one. So we just want to push that up, yoink, like that, and now we get the nice looking shading. So all of these guys here are feeding this one shader. That's why we have it outside, so we don't have to have shaders inside of each one of these. But since these guys have their own shaders, we're going to put it up above. Again, this is like an image stack. These are stacked on top of each other, so whatever's on top will obscure like items underneath it. So shader was getting blocked. So that's been fixed. Now what we want to do is let's zoom in here, look at those metal flakes. You can really see the procedural noise there. So what we want to do is decrease the size of the specular flakes. Obviously this was created on something more the scale of a bowling ball, and now we need to put it on a mouse, so this texture needs to be smaller. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're just going to say divide by, we'll go with 4, tab, right arrow, divide by 4, tab, right arrow, divide by 4, enter. And there it goes. And now that has turned into some nice looking speckle flakes. So we use the scroll wheel to back out of there. We're back to our guy. Okay, so that's looking really good so far. The next thing I notice is that the lighting is bad, very bad. So let's go over here to the directional light. And one problem I have with it is that it's too hard edged. So one thing you can do is just adjust the spread angle on the light. Okay, so that helps with the shadow, but the lighting's still pretty flat. So a more dramatic light, rather than a directional light, which is like the sun, would be something like an area light. So to get an area light in here, we're going to go ahead and set our spread back down to 0. I can just convert this directional light into an area light. Right click, change item type, area light, done. Now you see it gets kind of dark. Let's go ahead and zoom out here, pressing A, and we can see this is our area light here. I'm going to switch into item selection mode by holding shift and pushing the space bar. There we have it. Area lights are physically based, so they have an inverse square fall off. So this guy is its effect is sort of attenuating before it actually really reaches and has much of an impact. So we'll just choose the move tool and use the planar handles. Move that in there, push it up a little bit. Looks pretty good. I like it. Or I could use the transform tool, which also allows me to change rotation, scale of the area light, etc. For now, that's what I wanted to see. So let's go ahead and see that with the shadows and everything, I might prefer an angle like this. You know what? We're going to leave it here because I'm going to use some global illumination here in a minute to kind of smooth out some of these darker areas, get some bounced light happening. So I'm going to go over to render, choose global illumination, and turn it on, and that's all it takes. So what you're seeing right now is a significant blue cast to the environment, and this is because the environment itself is in fact largely blue. Blue skies, blue low skies, sort of a light blue ground color. So we're getting a lot of blue spill. That's okay, that's kind of what I wanted. So I like it so far. One thing I don't like is this little chord nub we have going on here. Let's switch to the edge selection mode. Again, select the mouse object, Shift A in the perspective view. Just going to zoom in. I'm using Control Shift, or Alt Shift rather, to zoom in. I'm going to double click on an edge. That selects the entire edge loop. P is for poly. Spacebar switches to poly mode. And now I'm just going to come over here, and we actually just want to go in and change the, we want to extrude this out using the curve extrude tool. So we're going to zoom in there. I wanted to see our work plane. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to go to duplicate, curve extrude, activate the tool, and just click out some vertices. I'm going to turn off a line there so you get a nice smooth look. And now let's go ahead and let's just give this a little bit of organic bend to it. And we'll kind of lay this down on the ground. I'm going to do each one individually so that it kind of gives it a bit more randomness to it. There we go. I like it. Okay, let's go back to our render try. The nice view there. Got the cord, got the paint, everything's looking good. Probably should save my project. Let's go ahead and do a render. This is going to take a couple minutes, so we'll pause and be right back.